Hello and welcome to episode number 9 of the All About Ability podcast with Mick Scarlet. Mick has done many things through his career, including acting and being a musician. But he is most known for his work as a broadcaster, journalist, and being an inclusion access expert. Mick shares his thoughts on disability and how it is perceived throughout the world. And as somebody who has been in a wheelchair his whole life, he really helped me think about things differently. And it was a very insightful conversation. I hope you can take something from it. Enjoy. Okay, we're here with Mick Scarlet. How you doing today, mate?
I'm very well, mate. Very well, not too bad at all.
This has been a long time coming. I think we've been going back and forth. I've enjoyed reading up on the things you've been doing. Do you want to just let everybody know what your kind of story is and how you started out in the future in today?
Yes, I am probably best known for my work in the media. I'm one of the first sort of faces that was disabled that was on UK television. There was a few before me, and Nabil Shaban was one, who was a friend of mine and a hero as a teenager. I watched him on Doctor Who, but I got into presenting and was one of the youth, and that's spelt YOOF presenters from the late 80s, early 90s. I then went into doing kids television, so I did a couple of shows, Beat That, and a thing called Wham Bam. And then I went to do news. I was quite noticeable because I had spiky blonde hair and leathers and bike clothes and looked really outrageous. And stayed in the media, still do a bit of the media, but not so much as I used to. I recently trained to be a weather presenter, but when I went to the final interview, the guy doing the interview just kind of went, "Yeah, you're great, but look at the state here." So apparently I'm not BBC News material. And so I, after working in the media, I went and retrained as an access and sort of access consultant, they're called, basically helping businesses to become more accessible. I've been doing that since about 2008. Worked on the Paralympic Games, currently work with Network Rail, TfL, lots of public transport sort of bodies, as well as businesses, especially retail. On Friday, I'm going to help the Tate work out their access around social distancing. And along that, I have continued to do some writing. I do a lot of comment stuff. There was a period where I was one of those rent-a-gobs that got wheeled out onto the telly to do What I Think, as it's called. But apparently I'm far too lefty. So I used to get so many death threats and stuff. I used to get death threats on Facebook from people using their Facebook account. And it was like, you do know I know who you are, you weirdo. So yeah, I'm kind of very much a jack of all trades and a master of none. So I used to do a bit of acting. I was the first person in a wheelchair to be in a UK soap that was hired to be there's already a wheelchair user when they were hired. Long before anyone watching this will remember, there was a show called Crossroads, where a character called Sandy, who became a wheelchair user in the story, was played by a non-disabled actor who became a wheelchair user after playing a wheelchair user. See, we get him in the end. So he was the first disabled character in a soap, but I was the first one hired to be one. Yeah. But I didn't really enjoy acting, because I was crap at it. So but I've got back into it recently because I've done some training. Again, that was a very strange job. So yes, I've done a lot of things. There's probably more. I was the first model with a disability, or disabled model, shall I say? I hate that, with a disability, my ass. I was the first disabled model at London Fashion Week in 1996.
Was the year I was born?
Yeah, so doing catwalk. I also modelled for the Times Sunday Supplement, which was a bit strange. But yeah, I've done a lot of things, but never really carried them on because they weren't what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm one of those, as you said when you were trying to research me, I'm one of those people that it's really annoying to research because I've done far too many things to still be alive. And it's funny, years ago, a mate of mine was talking about another well-known disabled person who I won't name, and said, if you add up all the things this person's meant to have done in their autobiography, they'd be in their 70s because the times don't work. But for me, everything was done all at once. So like I said, I kind of just bimble from one job to another. So who knows what I'll be doing next week? I don't.
to take you like right back to the start, like you were born not needing a wheelchair, you were fully able. Is that correct?
No, I was disabled. I was born with cancer, so and I was very lucky. The cancer I had normally would have killed someone, but I was put on a drug trial, and so it worked. But it meant that they didn't really have any way of knowing what the future held for this little baby thing that was not dying anymore. So they kind of told my parents I'd probably be dead by 15 at the most. And what I was left with was a limp. So I wore a caliper leg brace on my right leg. But other than that, I was pretty fine. So I kind of was disabled, but kind of walking wounded, which meant I went to a mainstream school and kind of did almost everything my mates did. It's funny, I've just fixed a hand cycle, and I'm now out hand cycling, going out after I do this. And I couldn't ride a bike because I would fall over. So I had to wait until I was 12 to get a tricycle. So I was disabled. I was the only disabled kid in my school, every school. But it didn't really impact on my life that often.
Yeah.
But then at 15, a side effect of the cancer treatment, unbeknownst to everybody, was that the large bones in my body, the holes between the bones have got bigger than they should be. So it meant the bone structure was weaker. And I was quite a short child. And then over one summer holiday, all the hormones kicked in, and I went from being about 5'4" to being about 6 foot. So I went to finish school 1 year shorty and ended up towering over everybody. And that meant that these bones grew really quickly and deformed. And the April after the summer holidays, my spine collapsed. So I woke up one morning to go to school, to my German O-level, and got out of bed and went, oh, my legs really hurt. My mum sent me to school in a cab because she thought I was trying to get out of going to school. And instead I collapsed at the feet of my geography teacher and was rushed to hospital, and I never walked again. So I became a full-time paralysed type wheelchair person in 1981. But it's kind of weird because it means I have both experiences. I've been disabled since birth, but I also became disabled when I was 15. Mm-hmm. So sort of it meant I had all of the experiences of kind of having a future ripped away from you that like people that acquire an impairment have. But I also had all the experiences of being the disabled kid that got bullied by the other kids for being disabled. So it's it's a very weird thing because, most people you meet have a condition, if they're born with it, that kind of is fairly static. If it goes up and down, it's sort of, you've got CP, you've got whatever. Some people have progressive illnesses, obviously, that continue up. But mine was like I went up a step and then it stayed continuous again. So, so, I mean, I suppose in a way it kind of gave me the ability to sort of know that it wasn't as bad as possibly some people that were non-disabled before they acquired their impairment would. But I think, to be honest, I generally had to grieve like everybody else. I had to sort of wave goodbye to the person I thought I was going to be and then realised that the person I had been told by society that I would be, now I was a paralysed wheelchair user, was not correct, and that I could be anyone I wanted. And if I'm honest, I found that it kind of set me free a little bit, because before, when I could walk, I had lots of expectations placed upon me. I was quite clever. I was expected, I got about 9 job offers before to leave school. And, I came from a working class family. I wasn't going to go to uni or college. I was going to get a job, get an apprenticeship, be a proper member of society. And then all that went, and I learned that suddenly people stopped expecting me to succeed. So when I tried, that was enough. Oh, well done. At least you gave it a go. But then when I did succeed, it was doubly good. And I tended to succeed quite a lot. So, so it's quite nice. But so I kind of, the pressure was off. I always think, I know when I finished sixth form, I dossed about like a sod at sixth form. And I didn't really do that well. And neither did all my friends, because we all mucked about. But I was completely let off. My mum was like, well, you went there to meet girls and have a laugh. Fine. All my friends were lynched for, they all had to go back and sit the exams privately, and you'll never go to university. And mine didn't really care. I mean, back then, you couldn't go to university, or at least I couldn't. I couldn't find one that'd take me. So I think that was another reason why I stopped trying. That kind of period where you're thinking about your future. And then I realised that, I wanted to study fashion, and just no fashion college would take me. Yeah. So I thought, well, I don't know what to do then. I'll just doss about and wear makeup at school. And that's basically what I did. So, yeah, that's a part in history of how I was up until I was about 18.
Do you know, I can really relate to that in a lot of ways. We were talking about the pressure sort of being off you, and I think there's a lot of people I know that are in wheelchairs that are too stuck in the mindset of being able to use the disability as a reason not to do something because of that. It's a mindset that I get stuck in. Like, see that way you're talking about it, I kind of took that in a more negative way, I think, when I was a bit younger.
I think the thing is I was very lucky because I was raised by a mum that told me that I was special, and not special, but sort of amazing special, because I beat this cancer that should have killed everybody, and and kind of. So it was. I didn't have any pressure, and I had this kind of, well, if you're good at it, you'll succeed, you're fine. But also, I think that I've never taken being bad at something as a sign that it's my fault. Do you know what I mean? Like, I have no respect for authority at all. So if I'm at school and I'm rubbish, my English teacher told me I was the worst student she'd ever had. And my music teacher told me I was tone deaf. So I then went on to become a professional musician for 10 years, and now I write for a living. So fuck your teachers. And I think that's the truth. Yeah. I think that it's really easy, and I don't blame anyone for doing it, but it is really easy to let society crush you. And I grew up during punk. I grew up during Margaret Thatcher. I grew up during the time when young people were allowed to really rebel. And I don't think that is allowed as much now. You want to go to university, you've got to run up the kind of debt that when I was young could have bought you more than one house. That's ridiculous. I never think that someone allows their disability to, like, well, I can't do it, so I won't try. Because I think it's a lot to ask of everybody to keep fighting all the bloody while. You shouldn't have to fight. I fought, but I'm talking about growing up in the 70s. I left school in 1981. It shouldn't be that in 2021 a kid leaves school and has the same shit to put up with. And yet I think they do. And so I think that, if anything, I think it's probably worse, because I didn't have an equality law. I didn't have anything. There was nothing. So anyone that did anything for me was doing me a favour.
Mm-hmm.
So they were being nice. Whereas now they should be doing it, and they're not.
Yeah.
And I think it's a real different mindset. If you haven't got anything, but you're not meant to have anything, it's very different to you should have the same as everyone else, and you've got shit all. That, I think, really gets to you. And I don't think society has moved on. You know, the like we were talking before we started, the Paralympian thing.
Yeah.
It's a big problem, because it's great. It's brilliant. It really raises the profile of disabled people. But it does say to you, if you're not the best, you're not anything. And I think that lots of people know they're not going to be any good at something like that. So they're not any good at anything. And it's like, no, there's a lot more to be good at.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you know, when I was 17, I did a correspondence course on makeup, because I was a new romantic. We wore lots of makeup. I wanted to learn how to do it. So I was very good at wearing makeup. You don't know, because I'm so good at it. I've got shitloads of makeup on because I'm so old, right? But you don't see it because I'm so good at natural makeup. But you don't.
That's true.
Like, so I go. So I go. I'm good at that. And I think the thing is that lots of young disabled people don't get the chance to be good at something else.
Yeah.
You're good at that sport, yay, or you're good at nothing. And to be honest, I mean, unless you're really good at sport, it should be fun.
Yeah.
I remember being at school and we had, set sport, PE rubbish. And I was rubbish at that. But then at lunchtime, we'd have no rules football, it was called. Basically, it was just like two groups of kids beating the hell out of each other with a ball on the pitch. And me and my friend Aston, who was a great big black guy, we were brilliant at it, because I had my caliper. So he'd trip them up and I'd boot them, or I'd trip them up and he'd land on them. So no one scored against us. So why does it, the rules of things, we're very into rules now. And I think occasionally, to be good at something in a society that doesn't give you what you want and doesn't allow you to shine, you need to break some rules. So we need more no rules Paralympics, where you're all just, mucking about and having a laugh. Then you'd get into sport. But,
yeah. Well, I mean, it's so true what you're saying. And when we were talking about it before, we were talking about how kind of stereotypes for other minority groups are kind of cool and edgy and interesting in a way, whereas ours is like, if you're in a wheelchair or you get disability, your life is over, effectively.
I mean, the thing is that you've got to understand, I mean, say you're a parent, right, and you get given this baby, right, now, and then someone goes, I'm ever so sorry, it's broken, right? That's what all of our parents have, right, if you're disabled as a child, right? It's really hard for your parent to get that out of their head. So they bring you up, and however much they try to make you feel good about yourself, you still carry that feeling. Every time you go to hospital, you're told, well, we can't get you to do this. Not, we can get you to do this. It's always about what you can't do. Yeah. We can make you better. Have some surgery. It will make you able to stand a bit longer. You're always being buggered about with to be less who you are. And you go to school, and you go to special school, you're with all the other disabled kids, and you're not mixing with non-disabled people. If you go to a mainstream school, you're still segmented and special, and all that kind of crap. When I went to school, you just got thrown in with the wolves, and if you survived, you were all right. But it meant I learned that non-disabled people aren't very healthy, they aren't very strong, they're not happy. All the things that we think that they might have over us, they don't.
Yeah.
And so it can really damage. So you internalize all this shit as you go through life. And then you go out into a world that, like you said, says things like, if it happened to me, I'd want to kill myself. If I was like you, I'd want to kill myself. Something I'm sure that everyone that's disabled that's watching and listening will have had. That's part. And that is what society thinks. So it's really hard for us to. So again, it's why I don't blame anyone for saying I can't be bothered to try, because I think that that is such a massive negative thing to just have thrown at you all the while.
Yeah.
And it's why I stopped doing acting, because I got so fed up with going for roles about suicidal disabled people. The other one was newly paralysed man, no longer able to have sex, decides to tell his wife to leave him because he isn't a real man anymore. And, that was the other storyline I had, suicidal cripple or impotent cripple. That was your lot. And that's one of the things, that lots of the stuff about us is negative.
Yeah.
So, and so the only time you do see positives, they're superhumans. They're not normal. They're not going down the shops, having a pint, scratching their ass, doing normal things that people do. And I think that that's damaging. It's damaging to your psyche, but it means also that the non-disabled community don't think we can do anything too.
Yeah.
So you go into the worlds like the media, and people are kind of amazed you can do it, and it's like, well, no, I can only not walk or not see or whatever. I'm not, I'm not incapable of everything. I do something different. I get around probably better than most of my non-disabled friends, especially now I'm old, because they've all got really fat, so I can't go far, right? But so I'm on my wheelchair. I can move for miles. So, but I just don't walk. So the only time it annoys me is if I have a flight of steps or a big step outside of business. But otherwise, I've got a comfortable chair. I've got a flush cushion. Why am I less able than them? Surely, I just am different.
Yeah.
I'm not disabled by that. I'm disabled by the world. And I'm a huge social model fan. That's how I live my life. I've always lived my life. Before I knew about it, that's what I thought about life. But I think that the rest of the world doesn't get it yet. I don't think a lot of disabled people get it yet. And I think that if you don't have that lucky moment like I had, where someone taught me about it and it made me realise a lot of stuff about myself and about the world, that sort of almost like a religious sort of epiphany.
Yeah, I would think that is it.
I mean, the thing is, right, is one of the things I don't think we talk about is the guilt we carry. Like, disabled people are, like I said, hey, mum and dad, here's your broken baby. And, I remember when I was a kid, my dad died when I was about 7 from a heart attack. And everyone used to say to me, oh, that was the stress of having you that killed him. And I really grew up thinking I'd killed my dad. But what they meant was that, you have a kid with cancer, it's a stressful thing. You have a disabled, but the way we talk to disabled people means you internalise all that guilt. I would go out, we would take the family out tomorrow, but we don't think we can get in with you, so we won't. Oh, it's my fault, is it? Yeah. And then you learn about the social model and you think, hang on a minute, it's not my fault, it's every fucking body else's fault. And so suddenly you realise that you're not to blame for all of the problems you face.
Yeah.
They are. The world is, all of the rest of them. And I think that, admittedly, that it does help if you're an old punk, but it kind of, you suddenly, what's internalised is externalised. And you think, right, I can change this. I can't learn to fly. And I think that is really important. And I wish that schools and, there was a way of teaching young people about it at an age when it really matters. Because I didn't learn about it until I was in my mid-20s. And if I'd have known about it when I was at school, I probably would have been an even more confident, annoying person than I am. But, and I think, it's something I'm definitely planning to do as I get older, is trying to find a way of working on that and trying to find a way of teaching young kids. So I don't think it just applies to disabled people, it applies to everyone. Yeah. The idea of the social model is that society is built for one type of person. And if you don't fit it, then society disables you. Whether you're black or gay or tall or short or rich or poor, wherever you are, if the society isn't set up for you, I mean, okay, if you're rich, it's set up for you. But you know what I mean? If you don't fit the norm, and so it actually works for all young kids. If you teach all kids that it's, just because they're different, it doesn't mean that they're less. It just means that actually they can make their society better, because the society built on difference is better than a society built on homogeny. You know, otherwise, you know, Hitler would have won, and we'd all be marching about in leather boots. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So do you know what I mean? It's you know, that's so. So I think that, you know, that's something that drives me. I don't know. I can't even remember what the question was. You will discover that one of the things I do a lot is I talk so much that I actually forget what the hell I'm talking about, and I kind of spiral and then stop. But luckily, you can edit that bit out.
No, listen, I enjoyed everything you said there. Like, it all kind of resonated a lot with me as well. I'm 23, and when you talk about internalising things and how you feel about yourself in a wheelchair or disabled, I had all those things from very early ages and did a lot of kind of not very good things and fell off track big time. Through just, it comes back to this idea that you talked about there of just, you're not enough almost. You have to be as normal as possible. And I like the phrase "to be different is to be normal," and you're talking about why does that make me any less able than someone else? It's actually, I look at it more like you and me are like differently abled. That's the way I like to put it.
I don't use differently abled. I'll tell you why, because it goes back to being normally abled.
Yeah.
And I think that's the problem, is that we're all differently abled. And I think that what we are is we are the extreme of that. I suppose I'm quite lucky in that respect that I also wear quite strong glasses. I've got contact lenses in at the minute, right? And I've always been far more disabled if I lose my glasses than if I can't reach my wheelchair. Because if I can't reach my wheelchair, I can't do anything. So therefore, I'm kind of like, oh, well, could you bring my chair over?
Yeah.
Whereas if I can't find my glasses, I can't see the damn things to find them. Do you know what I mean? So I know so if I really had to, I'd get on the floor, crawl to my wheelchair and get in it. Whereas, and I think that, and yet if you wear glasses, you aren't considered disabled. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the truth. It's like, there are loads of people who are really good at one thing and really crap at other things.
Yeah.
And it's sort of, we get around differently. Yes, we are different, but I think everyone is different. And the problem is we're so used to thinking of non-disabled people as being normal that we are different. And actually, they're just as different from each other as we are. Yeah. It's just ours are more noticeable. Yeah. And it's funny. It's funny, when you said you were 23, I thought, oh, wow, I remember being 23. Just about so long ago, 32 years ago. And one of the big ones for young people is sex. And sex and disability, right? But it's funny, the first TV show I ever did, proper documentary I wrote, was about disability and sex, and I was your age when I presented it, which is really scary because I've just watched it on YouTube, I uploaded it, and went, oh, I'm so young and beautiful. But anyway, the thing is, I learned very early on about that, all the baggagey stuff around sex. Yes, can I do it like they do it and all this kind of stuff? But the main thing that we grow up thinking is that we will be single and they're all out having sex all the while. Mm-hmm. And actually, the truth is, most of my non-disabled friends are the ones that are single, now they're older, have had very unhappy relationships, have a real problem forming loving bonds. And nearly all of my disabled friends are in long-term relationships. And if they're not, it's not because they can't, it's because they don't want to be. Yeah. You see what I mean? Yeah. And there's a real difference. And I think that we get told that we haven't got that in our future. Mm-hmm. And so we don't realise that actually not only are we going to have it, but we're probably going to have a much better time, because we aren't basing everything on looks, although I will admit I am very shallow. So, but luckily my wife is very beautiful, so I'm all right. But I can't, do you know what I mean? It's that sort of thing. And that goes with everything. You won't be able to do that because you're not perfect. Yeah. And it's like, well, who is? And you know, so much of what's going on at the minute is about diversity, representation, body positive. And yet we tend to be missed out on all of that. And yet we're the ones that actually could really change the way society thinks about itself. You know, having a girl that's like size 14. Ooh, it's like, yeah, why can't you have a size 14 girl that's a chair user or is blind or is an amputee? They are just as body positive, but they really challenge your idea of what a body is.
Yeah.
And I think, again, we're back to this idea. If we get young people, and I count you as one of them, you young fuck, to realise that it's all a load of bollocks. They're not happy. Non-disabled people aren't skipping around going, la, 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 I'm having sex with everyone while I'm dancing in my perfect body, happy as a sunboy. They're just as screwed up as we are. They just have to hide it. Whereas we don't. So we should love that and seize the day and revel in our time.
Yeah. There's like an element of we get to figure out who we are quicker because of that.
Yeah, we do. I mean, I don't know about you. I mean, I was quite lucky. When I was 15 and I went in hospital, they said I was dying. So I had a period where I was, basically dying of cancer again, and we can't do anything about it. Stuff like that. And I listed all the things I couldn't do and I hadn't done and I should have done. And it mainly revolved around hair dye, makeup, and having sex with girls. So it actually went, dye your hair, wear makeup, go to nightclubs, meet girls, because I thought you needed those ones before to meet girls. It was the 80s. Anyway, and then they went, oh, you're not dying.
Yeah.
But I spent 2 months in a terminal ward, and everybody else in this ward died. I was 15. The next oldest one was about 20-something, and then there was lots of people married and lots of families. And I saw the families lose people. The guy that was next to me was quite old, and he survived the longest. And I watched his wife come in every morning thinking he might die, and it was, it's a real massive wake up. Most 15-year-olds don't see this. And we all do that. We all have surgeries. We all see doctors. We spend our lives realizing that life is short and precious. And that should drive us to seize it. If someone says you can't come in here because you're a fire hazard or we're not accessible, then you just go, well, up yours and go next door. Don't let them crush you, and don't let them tell you that you're not worth it. Everyone that rejects you, it's their problem because they're missing out on you.
Yeah.
Whether it's your money, your friends, your company, your talent, whatever. I remember when I was about 17, I had a girlfriend. We were talking about becoming girlfriend, and we were talking about sort of what it would mean to go out with me. And she said, well, I don't know. I'll have to think about it. And I went, there's no thinking about it. You either say yes or no, but you're not thinking about it. Forget it. And I think that is the attitude that we need. If I now go out, and if I can't get in somewhere, I don't go back. Admittedly, I will say everyone needs someone like my wife because she has this weird antenna for access. So I will wheel past the building with a great big step and go, I'm getting in there. And then she goes, hello, have you got a ramp? Out comes a ramp. Today I went and bought a pair of Doc Martens from a shop that I thought I couldn't get in. I'd been in for since it opened. And apparently they've had a ramp the entire time. I could have had Doc Martens coming up my ears. But so also ask. Don't just look at them. But kind of, if they don't, then sort of go somewhere else.
It's really interesting to hear that because in the wheelchair football community, I've kind of grew up with a community, and that was how I first got to know people in wheelchairs and how I got introduced to the fact that it wasn't only just me in a wheelchair, because it felt like that sometimes when I was younger, especially when you go to mainstream school. But a lot of the guys and girls that I spoke to there, they had, I kind of overcame it by then, but a lot of them were really, especially people with muscular dystrophy and things like that, were really down. And I remember getting, I'm not going to name names here because I don't want to embarrass anybody, but without drinking, and I just remember a couple of my friends, a friend of mine, he's talking to me about, he's getting really drunk and he's talking about how he really wants to get married and how he wants to meet somebody, have a family. He's never going to do that because X, Y, Z, all the things you just spoke about there. And it's this idea that that you're right, that you can't have it until you're normal, until you can walk,
Yeah.
until you can do all these things. But like you say, it's about realising that though that thing you're aspiring for doesn't exist, everybody has problems, everyone has issues.
I think the big one is, and I completely get that attitude, because I remember it. You know, people always say to me, "Oh, well, it's all right for you because you're really confident." And you think, well, yeah, I wasn't confident. I became confident when I realised that it was bollocks. You know, when all the things I thought I couldn't do, I found I could. I might not do it the way other people do it, but I do it my way. And I think that the big one for people with conditions that might lead to shorter lifespan is you worry about the guilt of leaving someone. I had a huge, because I genuinely thought I'd die young, because obviously cancer, spinal collapse. My father died when he was 35. I doubted I'd live that for long. So I was like positive that I would die young. So I kind of made some very bad choices around relationships and stuff, because I thought, well, I don't really want to fall in love because I don't want to leave them. So, you know, my early relationships they were really nice people, but they weren't right for me. But the thing is, I also learned that it's not up to you to worry about that. Like, I met my wife when I was we got married. We first got together when I was 30. So I was really starting to think I'm getting near to leaving the world. I just had a massive car accident, and unbeknownst to me, had broken my back again. So I was getting to be quite ill. So I really thought I was dying. And yet I fell in love with the girl of my dreams. And I think I was saying to her, first she was really arguey because I felt so bad about this. And I didn't want to fall in love with someone and then leave her. And she said to me, it's up to me, innit? It's not up to you. You know, if I'm the one that's left, you'd have fucked off. I'm the one that's stuck here. So if I want to spend 5 years, 10 years with you, and then you die, that's up to me. It's not up to you. You're not doing me any favours. You know, I can't do it because I'm disabled and I might die. So that was something I kind of think that another thing that needs to be talked about is the fact that, you know, people don't know, like non-disabled people don't know when their partner's going to die. My dad died when he was 35. My mum was 28. So my mum was 5 years older than you. She had 2 kids and he died like that. He dropped and died of an embolism. So he just went, gone, right? And suddenly she was alone, didn't know what to do. He paid all the bills. So he wasn't disabled. She wasn't disabled. So in a way, knowing you're going to die actually gives you a time limit. So it can say to you, let's go and do some shit. Let's go around the world. Let's go on a cruise. Let's live. And I think that that's something I think that lots of non-disabled people and disabled people find really appealing. The idea of being with someone. So what if you need help getting dressed in the morning or whatever? It's not. That's when I was about 19. I went out with a girl, and her dad absolutely hated me, right? Because I couldn't get in the loft, I couldn't decorate, and I wouldn't be able to do the gardening. Whenever I have a garden, I'm a really good gardener. I have decorated almost every house I've lived in, and I've never lived anywhere with a loft because I live in flats. So my neighbours upstairs would get really pissed off if I started climbing through the floor and dumping my crap in it. So anyway, and it kind of made, it's not up to us. You know, he thought all these stupid stereotypes. She didn't care, right? And it's up to the person you're with to choose you. And if someone doesn't, if you fancy someone, you chat them up, you go, oh, hello, and they're like, oh, I don't know, I don't want to go out there, I'm disabled. They've done you a favour because they've not wasted your time. Mm-hmm. You know, I have had some people in my life who kind of, I went out with, who kind of probably didn't really want to do it, but didn't think they could say no. I didn't want to be the one that said I don't do cripples. So, and then you end up in a really long relationship with someone that's kind of always moaning about everything, and you're like, all you had to do is say no, and you'd have been happier, and I'd have been happier. So if someone says to you no, the other thing to remember is if someone says no to you, never blame it on the fact that you're not sexy or good looking. Blame it on the fact that they're shallow and don't want to date disabled people. Because that way, your confidence is always intact. Because if they say yes, it's because you're gorgeous. If they say no, it's because they're shallow and not the kind of person you want to be with anyway. And I generally used to do that. You know, so you go and talk to a girl and they'd be like, no, go away. And you'd be like, oh, what a shame. Poor shallow creature.
I wish I'd heard that about 5 years ago, to be honest.
Well, you know, you're still young, mate. I won't say anything. I don't know whether you might be in a long-term relationship and there's a girlfriend behind you going, I'm going to have him when I see him.
No, I'm not. But what's interesting hearing you talk about it is that throughout school, anyone who went to school with me knows that was kind of a ongoing joke or whatever. I didn't have any kind of confidence talking to girls or any sort of idea of what to do or how to do it or how to speak to them, because my opinion of myself was so low that the idea of how can you make someone out, how can you give a good impression to somebody else if you don't have a good opinion of yourself? So for quite some years, it was like the more time went on, the more it was like an ongoing joke, and the more I became insecure. And so the moment that somebody liked me for the first time, I jumped right on it. Like it didn't, it didn't matter who, what, or when, just anybody, anywhere. So I've been in a few, but I had one long-term relationship that I just made every possible mistake you could ever make in a relationship. Just out of needing somebody to be there with me all the time and not being able to handle my own thoughts by myself, you know what I mean, or how I felt by myself. So hearing you say that is really quite, it resonates with.
I think the other thing, two things to really remember for anyone disabled listening is, one, that, you know, I've been married 15 years in November. I've been with the same girl who I absolutely adore for 25 years. I knew her for 6 years before, but I have had some humdinger bad relationships where because of exactly what you were talking about, that internal self-doubt, did not just walk away or did not do things right. So it's not just you.
Yeah.
It's probably everyone you meet who looks happy has done it. But also, everyone you meet who isn't disabled will have done it.
Yeah.
I suppose I'm quite lucky because I've got a sibling, a brother who's he's dyslexic, but he's not. But you can't see that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So people don't, you don't walk into a room and they go, that's the dyslexic bloke. But they do tend to go, that's the wheelchair user. Or wheelchair Mick, as I used to be called. So, but he's had some awful relationships. Do you know what I mean? And I think that it's and if I think about all of my non-disabled friends, loads of them got married, had kids, had horrible, unhappy lives, and I think that we as a community can sometimes get a little bit hung up on our own internalized imperfection, and then go, right, anyone that's with me is doing me a favor. And it's like, no, we're really lovely. We're great people to have relationships with. Like you said, we're more probably mature, we're more understanding. That may even be a bit more grateful. So kind of, and it's sort of, it just worries me. And I think it's really, what's sad is, you are young enough to be easily my son. We're getting into almost grandson territory, right? And yet you're saying the same things that happened to me. And I think that's we're talking about why podcasts and stuff like that are so important, and why the change in media is important. And I think that's one of the reasons why it is, because I think that people like you can be the one that puts the stuff out to tell the next generation, this is what can happen.
Yeah.
And so they know what to think, and they know what to spot out for. And they know that a lot of the things that they're being told they should think isn't true. You and me were both raised with a lot of internalized self-hate, sort of feelings about insecurity and la 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 la. we can stop that. We can be the generation that says to all the younger people, don't believe the hype. Non-disabled people aren't all dancing around happy, but also that non-disabled people can learn something from us. That we, as we get older, kind of fall in love with our bodies, I think, quicker than they do. I will say, but one of the most annoying things about it, which I've realised now I'm 55, is I fell in love with my body about the same time my body started falling apart because it's got old. So don't do what I did, right? Fall in love with yourself younger so that you've got a few years where it actually stays in the place you want it to. But yeah, and I just don't let the world outside tell you that you're something less.
Yeah.
Because you're not. So I'm really lucky I had a mum that brought me up to believe I was probably better, not worse, if you know what I mean. I suppose because I'd survived this cancer, she was like, you're amazing, you survived this cancer. And I think the same goes, everything that we do in our lives as we go through it is stuff that most people don't have. I don't know about you, but I had lots of surgeries as a kid. That's something most kids don't have. I had to struggle to do stuff that most people just did normally. And I think that shouldn't be seen as a bad thing. It should be seen as a good thing because it means that we have that ability to get around things, to think differently. I do a lot of work now around inclusion and employment. And one of the big things I focus on for employers is that disabled people come to problems in a different way. If you've got a room full of people that have never had to think about access, they won't see it. And even if you have a load of people that are professional access consultants, if they're not disabled, they won't think the way we do. You're better off having a room full of amateurs who are disabled than having a room full of professionals who aren't. Of course, the best thing to do is have a room full of professional disabled people and pay us the going rate. And that's my big push. But, to say to an employer, you're trying to think about how you do this differently. How do you design a space? Well, why don't you employ someone that's visually impaired to help them, to help you understand what it is like and get them to, and not only just employ them in design, but have just disabled staff that can be part of a disabled staff network that you can go to say, hey, we're thinking of doing this thing. What do you think? And so then their lived experience benefits your company twice. You've got what they do professionally and their lived experience helps you get what you do become more inclusive. And so, again, we're back to the thing that kids, young people should see that they bring something to the table. That Joe Bloggs, who's never had to fight a day in his life, other than, not being the best at football that everyone else is or whatever, they're going to bring their stuff, but we bring something extra. And, I think we need to start reminding society that it's the outriggers that actually are the ones that can change stuff for the best.
Yeah.
With all this COVID-19 and coming out of lockdown, if we had designed a world that worked for disabled people, the virus wouldn't have spread so quickly. It would be much easier to come out of lockdown, and it would be much easier to battle the virus in the first place. So, I do a lot of work now sort of saying we need to learn these lessons. Pavements need to be bigger. We need to have bigger toilets. We need to have more hand washing facilities. All the stuff that we've been going on about for ages. Doors that open automatically, so you don't need to touch doors.
Yeah, exactly.
How do you spread it? Touching doors. It's sort of like, it's kind of always, I watch it all, I'm like, but we've been saying this for years.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important for young people to remember. They are going to bring something to society. Society isn't doing them a favour if they get a job or they get a house or they get a girlfriend or a boyfriend or whatever. You're bringing your stuff to the table, and your stuff is amazing. God, I really am sounding like some kind of old wise sage. So you young people, listen to the voice of Grandad.
No, I'm loving. Honestly, I'm loving it. I'm loving everything you're talking about because it just resonates so much, and the way you say it is in such a way that it's very understandable. It's very like it's not like you're saying it in a way that people will understand, which I think actually is sometimes an issue.
Yeah, I've watched lots of people in equality, like talking about the social model. How do you describe it in a way that people get? Because you're brought up to believe that you're broken and that medicine will make you better, and little improvements are good. And I always say no. There's nothing wrong. I was like, when I was a kid, and anyone that watching, Google Charlton and the Wheelies, right? It's a kids show, like animated stop motion thing, right? About a happiness dragon called Charlton. It was in the 70s. Everyone was on a lot of drugs in the 70s. Who ends up in the world of the Wheelies, and the Wheelies are a group of people that don't have legs but have wheels, and all of their world is fully adapted. And Charlton has legs, so he's always having trouble. He can't fit in all the ceilings are lower because we don't. I mean, I've got space above me. You've got room for another whole flat.
Yeah.
In our world, flat ends there, lovely. We could have a flat with a ceiling that high. That'd be well enough. But eventually you'd get an extra floor, right? And it was a bit like that. And the baddie was a Welsh witch called Frenella who could walk and didn't like the fact that the Wheelies were always so happy because they lived in a fully adapted world for them, and she couldn't get in. So you'd got the person that thought it was very nice that these people lived in a world that was accessible. You'd got the people that lived in the accessible world, and then you've got this person going, right? So I grew up with this. I never think that this would one day shape my life. But the social model is Charlton and the Wheelies. In a world where everyone is on wheels, walking on legs makes you disabled.
Yeah.
So, because we would build a different world. There'd be ramps, there'd be no steps. Like I said, the whole world would have much lower ceilings so that ex-girlfriends' dads couldn't hate you for not painting the ceiling because you'd just do that. Do you know? It's sort of, and it kind of, so that is the social model. It's saying that the world, we aren't broken. We're in a world that's not built for us.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the world built for us would work for other people. My next door neighbour, but one, broke his leg tombstoning. This is a fully grown man of about my age who one day went to Cornwall and jumped off a cliff and smacked his legs to buggering. So for about 2 years, he was a wheelchair user while they rebuilt him. And he was just moaning about how hard everything is. I didn't realise it was so tough. And it's like, well, in my world, it wouldn't be. You could break your legs or not. You could have a baby and push it down a pushchair. You could get old and it would be great. And that's what the social model is. It's not about us being fixed to fit their world. It's about us changing this world to fit all of us. So that whatever your impairment, it works for everyone. And that's the difference. And that's it. You can like your being disabled. You can hate being disabled. That's up to you. But the social model isn't about that, really. It's about saying that you might only hate yourself because you don't feel like you don't feel perfect. And our world says, what's perfect? I feel as perfect as I can be. It's funny, blimey, it's nearly 20 years ago now. Jeez. I was offered surgery that might bring back my legs. And I turned it down. And everyone was like, what? You don't want to walk? And I was like, no, I don't want to walk badly. Because they were like, I haven't walked for so long by then. My bones had weakened, my hips disintegrated. Yeah. So it would be a lot of surgery that was going to be like 5 or 6 major operations, all false hips and knees and stuff. And then I was going to walk with sticks and calipers. And it was like, well, why? My wheelchair, I get around really brilliantly. And everyone was freaked out because apparently walking is the most important thing in the world. And it's like, that's what's going to make you feel inferior. Being told that that walking badly is better than wheeling well. And I think but that's not us, that's them. That's the medical model, not the social model. That's you're broken. The only way to get from A to B is on legs. All other getting around is rubbish.
Yeah.
Or the only way to get around is to see or to hear. The only communication should be oral. Sign language, that's not a real language. That kind of stuff. And you shouldn't, that is rubbish, because that's the same as saying, well, there's only one kind of skin, white skin. There's only one type of sexuality, heterosexuality. But you know what I mean? And as soon as you think about it like that, you realise it is complete crap. And if you think that, you think that white is right and everything else is rubbish, or, straight is what you should be and all others are sick, you're the weirdo, you're the fascist.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But when it comes to disability, we internalise it, and everyone tells, and it's they're wrong. You are great. You are valid. You're better than that. And in my book, I think we're more than valid. And like I said, I think we bring something new to the table that would make the world a much happier place. So it's kind of, and if you are like me and you feel fueled up by that, and like yourself, you're fueled up to change stuff, great. If you're not, that's also great.
Yeah.
We shouldn't have to be bloody campaigners. I am so fed up with being introduced as Mick Scarlet, broadcaster and disability campaigner. No, I'm not. I am disabled in a world that makes me disabled. I can't help being a campaigner because I have a platform. But you shouldn't have to do it. At some point, I should be unemployed, because I shouldn't have to keep telling businesses how to make themselves accessible, because they just should be. Don't worry. I know, sadly, that I will be long retired before that happens. I get the feeling I might be in a very nice pine box, to be honest. But we're getting there. And I think that I can't really internalise it anymore. And so we're back to this idea of telling young people, if we can get them to learn that it's okay, then I think hopefully, I know a friend of mine's got a daughter, Dan and Emily White, and Emily's 13, nearly 14 now, I think. I don't know. It's what happens when you get old. Kids get older and you don't realise because you're ancient. But she's probably one of the most confident disabled kids I've ever met. And she truly feels, well, why haven't I got this? Where is this thing? Why aren't you? I should have this thing.
Yeah.
I should be able to do what my friends do. And I think that's what all kids should be like. It shouldn't be like we were when you turn up, sorry, mate, can't come in, and you go, all right, or you swear at them or whatever. It should be, well, I should be able to come in. What are you going to do to change it? Or I'm going to sue you. Really, what we should be doing is we should be all living off the suing money. We go round, whenever we go anywhere, we can't get in. Unfortunately, it's a bit difficult. But
I know. I wish it was as easy as that. They make it hard, don't they? You touched on as you were talking about the social model, you touched on the medical model, and I was reading a wee bit about your article on addiction and how that was one of the things to deal with. Talk us through a little bit about that, about how you had to deal with the battle through addiction.
Well, and the thing is, because my nerves were quite badly damaged when I was 15, one of the things was my nerves weren't severed, they were crushed. So that led to problems with chronic pain. So I have been scarfling various painkillers that are now considered all addictive. Terrible. Since I was 15. Admittedly, you're only addicted to them if you don't need them. If you need them, they're medication. People aren't addicted to insulin. They take it because they need it. I have an amazing life, and that is because I manage my pain. But pain meds are funny. And pain is funny. It's not static. It fluctuates. So sometimes I can have really bad periods of pain. I will take more medication. And pain meds is really easy to slip into taking them a lot. And what happens is your body will start making you have new pain, friendly, made-up pain. And so I know what to look out for. So I get pains in my wrists, I get pains in my shoulders, and weird other ones that aren't my normal pain. And that normally indicates, you probably need to watch out because your body's trying to get you to take more meds than you should be taking. And I think it's funny because you hear a lot at the moment about people being addicted to pain medication. And it's because they don't talk to people that take pain meds as part of their daily lives. So people get hurt, they start taking strong painkillers, they get addicted. Then this new pain comes along and they go, oh, I've got a new pain in my shoulder, better take some more. Because they don't realise that that's not real pain. That's your brain, your addictive brain going, these painkillers are quite nice. You take them when I hurt, so I'm going to make stuff hurt that doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
And I haven't actually hurt my wrists. My wrists are hurting because it wants more pain meds. And then what happens is your ability to fight pain naturally drops. And so then it does hurt because we don't appreciate, but doing everything, that moving your head, even moving your eyes, actually hurts because it's damaging the muscles. So your body is flooded with pain meds all the while that it creates itself. If you take morphine, heroin, that disappears. So suddenly everything hurts. And you can, it's a really important one to know, is if you can feel your own bowel function, you probably are addicted to something. Because that's what happens. You start feeling everything. And then you just have to know that it's going to hurt, but you stop or you cut down. And I mean, obviously I can't stop. But I used to take, when I broke my back after the car accident in the late 90s, early noughties, I got really hooked on very strong painkillers. And after the surgery, I had to come off. And that was one of the many times I've done it all my life. And it just basically is a case of knowing that you're going to feel a bit shit. And then you don't, if you see what I mean. It's about a week of feeling really crap. It's about a fortnight of kind of getting used to the new you, and then you're back. And then because I will always have these spikes that happen, it can be 3 months, it can be 6 months, it can be a week. And suddenly I'll get off, and then it'll happen again. And then I have to decide how much I want to take, because it might be a week pain spike and then 4 weeks getting off the medication again to go back to my normal self. But it's one of the things when I say about how we can teach society stuff, it's kind of what I mean, is we bring an understanding of stuff that they don't have. And so it's all black and white. It's either you're an addict or you're not. And it's like, no, there's a middle ground. You can have an injury that hurts, but pain medication never stops pain. It lessens it. So if you think you're going to take pills and it goes away, you're wrong. If you take a medication and it stops, that medication is too strong and you will get addicted. So basically, it should lessen your pain. And you should only ever take as much as works to lessen it to a livable level. So, but most doctors who do pain will try and stop it. You can't unless you're overdoing the drugs. And most non-disabled people think that pain is something that shouldn't be there. And I think that it's one of those things that those of us that live with chronic pain can bring to the table. We can tell people that that's not the truth. The truth is somewhere in between. And it means that rather than say, well, we're going to just stop people getting opioids, for people like me, that is a really scary idea, because if you take all my meds away, I suddenly have a shitload of pain to deal with. That isn't, no amount of meditation and acupuncture and mindfulness and yoga is going to stop it, because it's basically the nerves have been stripped of their sheath. So every movement will cause a shock. Lots of messages get sent to my brain that aren't real. So I get this thing where I feel like people are sticking knives in my legs. It's just a sensation in my leg. It's been misinterpreted. So without my medication, I wouldn't be able to function. But I function well with it. But I also function well knowing how to handle it. And I don't think we get enough of that. So, and I think that's the same for everyone. It's like we all have things about our impairments that mean we become an expert in something, and we watch the rest of society freaking out. And you're like, why don't they just ask us? We'd be really useful in this. And years ago, I went to the BBC with an idea about a programme about medicine, but from the patient's point of view. You know, you always get, hello, I'm Dr. Biddly Biddly, and we're going to talk about new medical treatments, right? From the doctor's point of view. Then they'll kind of interview some poor sick person and go, wouldn't you like to be better? And I wanted to do it from the point of view of the disabled person, saying, well, I will never be better. And I've been disabled all my life, wheelchair user for 40 years next year. So I bring experience. Then I'd speak, say, to someone of your age, younger wheelchair user, and then go and meet someone that's just starting to get back to life, that's had an accident, they've been in it a year. And then we all share stories and experiences. And they were like, no one wants to watch that. That's like, who cares about patients? And it's like, because we're the ones that live it. When you fall off that ladder, you aren't going to be the doctor, you're going to be the patient. So our stories are so much more important than why Dr. Fibble Bibble, you know, one of the doctor twins, worries about healthy eating or not taking pain meds. You know, he's never been in pain.
It's so true, and I've never really heard anything like that before. I think that's, which is...
I mean, the thing is, it's like everything. You know, there will be something about you and your life that I could learn from. You know, there are loads of stuff that you could teach me and I could teach you, and And I think that's it. And that's why stuff like this is so important. You are giving people a chance to air it, and you know, you should also air your own stuff. Think about the stuff. Think about having tips that you can give, the stuff you've learned. Yeah. You know, and it's why I love social media so much now, because you know, for every single death threat and weird, you know, conspiracy theory and all that kind of madness, we are a really supportive community that really do help lift others up. So, you know, if you're disabled and you want to know about stuff, get on social media, get following. There's so many brilliant people. I've learned, I mean, I work professionally in this stuff, and I've learned so much from my social media contacts, you know, from silly things like autistic people, not people with autism.
Yeah.
This is an identity, not an impairment. And it's like, that's so important to that community. But yeah, if you ask doctors and specialists, they're people with autism. And that's a perfect example of how the community, through social media, changes the way society sees them. So I love it.
It's a chance to finally speak up and be heard that way, you know, properly. I mean, there's so many things to learn from what you said. To go on what you touched on, like yoga and mindfulness and things like that. And I was looking through your YouTube channel where you were doing a workout and you went through it all, and it got me wondering, like, I'm quite an active gym user. It helps me, it gives me a lot of independence to have upper body strength with my particular condition, especially with cerebral palsy, because the thought process in the brain can be quite slow sometimes, as you'll know with that. So it helps that kind of speed it up a little bit. I actually did a workout right before this on the handbike you spoke about, just because I knew that you were very well spoken and very well educated, so I wanted to keep up with you. I'm trying my
best. You did a workout to think, guys, I've got to be up with this. Like, he just won't stop talking. You need a flag. My wife has a flag. Right? It's not real, but she'll just do that. And it means, all right, there's a joke flag, because I don't always get her jokes. And then there's a kind of, all right, that's another one. Right? That's from telly. Shut up.
I love it. But yeah, so I've just, based on the things we're talking about, the chronic pain and your kind of condition, what kind of workouts would you sort of recommend for that sort of condition and things like that, like yoga and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I do yoga. I kind of, basically, I was trying to find a way of getting through a pain spike. I found that what I've probably got is a bit like sciatica. So I started doing sciatica yoga, which is sort of all that stretching stuff. And then I sort of developed my own little sort of system. And I think that something we have to do is find a way of taking what, you know, normal sport, normal activity, and modifying it for our own needs. We know our body better than anyone. And that's kind of what I did. I think the thing is that activity, whatever it is, it should be something you love. You know, the Paralympics are a perfect example of sport and that kind of stuff. Like, you can want to do it professionally as a dream of one day winning gold, but you might also want to do it for fun. And it should be fun, and you should find a way of doing what you I used to be really good at swimming. I used to beat my non-disabled friends at swimming, but I also discovered peroxide hair dye, and you can't swim in chlorine with peroxide because it may on occasion go green. So I stopped. So that was not my sport, and I didn't. I used to go dancing. I go to clubs and dance all night, and that kept me really fit. My wife has just taken up dancing again, and she's lost loads of weight. You know, she wasn't big, but she's like a twig again. And I think that it's finding something you love, because then you don't mind doing it differently.
Yeah.
Like you said about wheelchair football. Like, when I was a kid, the idea of wheelchair football was like, what? Wheelchair football? It's football for feet. You know, and we now at that point where we can pretty much take anything. I went to a wheelchair martial arts meeting, and that was amazing. Watching these guys have proper knockdown martial arts fights in chairs was sort of amazing. And one of the guys was teaching how to use your chair as a weapon. So if you get mugged and thrown out of your chair, you beat the person up with your wheelchair. And it was like, this is bonkers. But yeah, of course, never thought, you know, wheelchair, very handy weapon. If you can lift it up, of course. But there are loads of ways, so there's quite a few ways of defending yourself. Did you know that if you do that, so you cup your hands so they're in a kind of hook position with your fingernails pointing towards your palms, and put them behind someone's ears and pull, the ears come off. So if you're being attacked and you've got clawed hands, as long as you can get them behind their ears and pull them off, you will pull their ears off. And I can guarantee you that no one is going to carry on attacking you while you've got their ears.
That's a good bit of information.
Yeah, so it's always good to know that. So just boom, and it comes off. And it don't take that much effort as well, because they're already kept on with a bit of skin and they're not connected, they're cartilage. So it's basically, you get that bit of skin to tear and they'll come off in your hand. And then they run away. And then you have ears that you can wear around your neck to show how many people you've ripped the ears off. But I think I'm not very sporty. And it's why I am one of those people that talks out about there being more to the disabled community than the Paralympics. I do it a lot. I like art. I like creativity. I like that stuff. And that doesn't necessarily keep you fit, but I think it keeps you mentally fit, because you're doing stuff that you love. And I think that's it. You know, if you love wheelchair football, knock yourself out, mate. I won't be there, right?
Yeah.
I'll be at home painting and, you know, listening to music. But it's what you love. And I think we will never be the people that you see. You know, there are some disabled people that you end up, you know, you watch the guys in wheelchairs weightlifting with ripped muscles and all that. And it's that's great. That's what they love. But I kind of, most of us won't be that.
Yeah.
So to do it because it's fun.
Yeah.
I honestly do my yoga. I do it twice a day. And I do it because it really helps. As I'm getting older, you get sort of shoulder seizing up and stuff because you've lifted yourself on and off everything for 40 odd years. Your shoulders are not meant to take that much stress. That really helps with that. It's helped me develop core. So I do it because I like it. You know, if I didn't want to do it, I wouldn't do it. I think that's the thing. And because all of us, I would imagine, have done physio at some point. And we all know that physio is the most boring thing on earth.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, what you need to do is find the anti-physio. You can still do the same stuff, but how do you do it so you enjoy it? And I think that's the thing. And it's all individual, you know. I mean, I danced at the Paralympics opening ceremony, and that was great fun. And I love dancing, but I'm not a dancer. So I'd never win a dance medal, shall we say, but I can have a good dance. And I think that's it. So it always worries me. I did those videos because someone said, how do you do yoga in a chair?
Yeah.
So I did the one in the chair, then I did the one sitting on a cushion, I think. I did another one in the chair, then I did one laying on the floor. And I did the one laying on the floor because I had people say to me, yeah, but I can't sit up. So I thought, well, I'll do, and I now do the one laying on the floor every single day because you get a much better stretch. Sitting in your chair, it's a different stretch.
Yeah.
So, but I kind of, I'm not a yoga teacher. That's for sure. I'd have a much better figure if I was. But kind of, there is so much stuff online. So if you want to keep fit, there will be someone tell you. And you might want to end up, looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Sorry, that's an old reference that you young people wouldn't get. But someone muscly from now.
I know what that is. Arnold Schwarzenegger. Got to jump up.
It's really funny, right? When I was young, there was only extremes. So there was either people David Bowie thin, or Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I, unfortunately, due to biology of having an Irish family, have got the more Arnold Schwarzenegger style body. But that was not fashionable for young people, especially because I was a goth. So I hated my body. And recently I've realised, what a fool, go with it. So now I am trying to bulk up because I thought, well, if I'm going to be big, I might as well be big. And so, and it's not bad. I'm now actually bigger than Arnold Schwarzenegger, and it seems I'm taller than him anyway. That's all right. Admittedly, the way it's going, I'm going to end up looking like him now rather than then. Oh, dear.
Oh, no, because it got me thinking there when you were talking about how I'm into wheelchair football and things like that. That is what, sport is what I'm passionate about, and that's what I know that makes me tick, and I really enjoy it. But there might well be quite I think there's maybe people that play it or get involved in it because the other creative side of things, like you spoke about, music, art, things like that, the opportunity for those things that aren't there. And so people come in to play wheelchair football just to be around people, just to, and there's not really that opportunity to express yourself in those other forms. So you kind of have to turn to sport because sport seems to be the only thing people look at.
It's really weird that what's happened alongside the growth of the Paralympics, I think, is this shrinking of otherness, of other things you can do. When I was young, there were someone like Ian Dury, disabled pop star, right? Before that, there was Gene Vincent. There's, there has been disabled people, and then, and like I said, there was people like me on the telly, and I kind of now all the people on telly are ex-Paralympians, pretty much. Paralympians are everywhere. And so if you're young, your only role models are this one group. So you think, well, that's my route out. You were talking about how kind of stereotypes around different other groups are not quite so. They're still negative, but there's sort of, like black guys can dance and, gay people have really good fashion sense and all this kind of stupid stuff. All of ours are kind of crap, unless you're a Paralympian. And that's it. That's your route out.
Paralympics, the Holy Grail. The Holy Grail.
And I think that doesn't happen to the non-disabled community. It's not. If you're not going to win a gold medal at what you do, you aren't worth knowing.
Yeah.
And it's why I've always loved art, because you can be really crap at it, but you can love doing it, and it's still valid. The drawing, the painting, the music, the poetry, whatever you love, you don't have to win medals at it.
Yeah.
Also, it's all relative. It's all someone else tells you they like it, right? So you win a gold medal, you've beaten everybody else. If you read a poem and in a room of 30 people, 10 people like it, you've won because 10 people like it. It doesn't. Do you know what I mean? So it's a kind of very different. So it's the Paralympic mindset, the sport mindset is win or nothing, first or die. And I don't. For some people, that's great, but I don't think it's great for everybody. And I don't think it benefits your mental health.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's the only places you can go are to do sport. So you have to do sport to meet people, to make friends. Then you kind of end up, you're already unhappy because you're not doing what you love. And then you're with people who love what you don't love. And so then you're not too, do you know what I mean? So everything around your life isn't full of joy.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing is that from my experience, I can't compete athletically with non-disabled people, really.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I said, I used to be really good at swimming, but other than that, not really, no. You just can't. You know, like I said, I couldn't play football, but I can play wheelchair football. So you end up in a room full of other wheelchair users. Whereas art, you end up in a room full of artists. It's not, I mean, there is disability art. I'm a huge advocate of it. I think it's great. But you don't have to do that. You can be in a room full of painters. You can go and study life drawing, and you're not going to go disabled life drawing. You're just going to go to life drawing.
Yeah.
And whatever you draw, however you draw, whether it's, you know, brushing your mouth, whether it's, you know, however, whatever your art form is, you can do it in a mixed way. So you can be a disabled artist and you can compete with non-disabled artists.
Yeah.
And I think that there's something wonderful about that. And it's why I'm a huge believer that the Paralympics and the Olympics need to be put together. Because I think that it needs to be a month-long, say, event where you have the athletics, and you have a running race and a wheelchair race and and a running blade race, and it's all, you know. And then if someone is so fast on their blades that they can compete with non-disabled people, then fine. You see what I mean? And it's sort of having this, and now another special day for all the cripples. It's sort of it others us, and I think that it's the only, we celebrate it, but it's the only thing that we like that others us. Anything else, if it was like, well, that's your special bus, we wouldn't like it. That's your special cinema, we wouldn't like it. That's your special school, that's bad. But that's your special sporting day, apparently, is great. And I think that's great for some people, but I think for many people it isn't good. And I think that there needs to be that outlet. I'm going to say my battery's about to run out, so you're going to have to end this in a very good style. But otherwise, it's just going to go floop, right? But I think that could be our future. I think that we could, if you don't like sport, just go and find something else. Yeah. Because my life was totally saved by music. I dived into it, and I loved it, and I learned the technology, and I learned to play, and I taught myself to sing, and I loved it. And it's where I met girls, and where I went to clubs, and I started DJing, and I had a wonderful my 20s and 30s were just a non-stop party because of music. And it can be anything, writing, anything. It could be you like business, you like stocks and shares. Get into that, love it. Don't think the only way out is PE, because let's face it, PE was shit at school. So why you do it for fun, I don't know.
And you know what? If there was ever a point to finish on that,
that's it. Brilliant. You're going to go far, mate. That's the best bit of ending. I think I burn out a battery, and you just go, and with that, good night.
But where can everyone find you, Mick?
Well, I'm on Twitter on @MickScarlet. That's MickScarlet. I've got my own website that's going to be updated soon, because my wife is a web developer, but she's so busy that it's like living with a decorator that never cleans the house. You know, he's promised to put a kitchen in for 4 years. So, but that's going to be updated soon. YouTube, there's lots of videos of me when I was very young. And just type in Mick Scarlet. Mick with no C, like the 80s, and Scarlet like the colour. And that's it.
Well, thank you very much for coming on. That was one of the most enjoyable interviews I've ever done. So
that's what I like to see.
Appreciate that.
Anyway, lovely to meet you. I shall see you again soon. Drop us the link when it's online, and you know me, I'll social media the heck out of it. Lovely to meet you.
Right. Great conversation. See you soon. You have a good night there. Right. Cheers.
You too.
Thank you for listening. Be sure to support the All A Bit About It podcast on all of our social media platforms, including Instagram and Twitter, as we spread our message that anything and everything is possible. The podcast returns next Sunday, 12 p.m, with motivational speaker Stuart Myers. And believe me when I tell you, it's one you won't want to miss. Thanks again. See you next week.